I hate to interrupt all this conversation, but we do have more things we want to share. And as you finish the main course, we have 3 short talks, each illustrative of parts of our work. First is grantee Tomas van Houtryve, a Paris-based photographer with the 7 Photo Agency. His Blue Sky Days project on drone warfare for Harper's was the longest photo essay in that magazine's history. It was also a brilliant, chilling exercise in transposing drone surveillance and targeting techniques to everyday American scenes. His new project, due next month in the New Yorker, and also as a museum installation for SICA, the Southeastern Center for Contemporary Art, juxtaposes photography and social media to track the flow of refugees across Europe. So, Tomas.
Thank you, John. So let's talk for a moment about journalists and money. So in 1999, 1 month after graduating from college, I was hired as a staff photographer by the Associated Press, and I was sent to be based in Panama. I was 24 years old, and it was a dizzying experience to be thrown into my first real job in a country that was new to me. Luckily, I was quickly shown the ropes by a tight-knit community of foreign correspondents, and of course, they told me epic stories about their scoops and their dangerous run-ins with rebel fighters. They also introduced me to the concept of an expense account, car rental, business dinners, room service. Now, you have to understand that coming out of 4 years of college, eating ramen, riding my bike, and limiting my travel to places where my friends had a couch, this was a very tantalizing new possibility. Some of my colleagues even bragged about ways to game the system. For example, you could justify buying a new suit and fancy shoes if you could line up an interview with Panama's president and put it all on the company dime. But it wasn't long before I learned that having the expense account just meant that I could fully concentrate on getting a story rather than fretting and strategizing about money. I could follow up on leads and capture moments, and AP's resources always had my back. After 3.5 years as a wire service photographer with short deadlines, I decided to go freelance so that I could devote myself to long-term projects. Suddenly, money became a real issue again. I was back on friends' couches or in grubby guest houses, and I became an expert at hitching rides with staffers from other news organizations. Most worryingly, I was covering conflict without proper insurance. Over the years, my income grew, my roster of top-level clients multiplied, but so did the uncertainty. Some clients had to be hounded for months before they would pay my invoices. With the 2008 economic crisis, many clients simply disappeared. Having seed money to pursue ambitious projects became a real concern. I devoted more and more time to making ends meet, sapping my productivity. Soon, I became reliant on grants to keep my projects going. Enter the Pulitzer Center, whose team has now backed 3 of my most ambitious projects, and unlike other grant-giving organizations, their deadlines are rolling, meaning I don't have to wait for an annual deadline to keep my projects going. My first Pulitzer Center grant allowed me to trace the borders of North Korea. After 2 tightly controlled visits inside the Hermit Kingdom, I wanted to explore the country's fringes and interview escapees. Gaining access was painstaking and time-consuming, but the grant allowed me to stick to the story until it was comprehensive. Now, there's the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but what fewer people understand, but what the team at the Pulitzer Center gets, is that a powerful photo can also have many lives. So in addition to being published in magazines, the team supported an exhibition of my North Korea work and several artist talks, and they brought me into dozens of classrooms in Washington and Philadelphia to share my stories and photos with students. Now, the first time I stood in front of assembly full of adolescents, I thought they might have other things on their mind besides journalism. But surprisingly, when presented with interesting material, they displayed curiosity and, most remarkably, an acute sense of sensitivity to stories of injustice. My second project they backed was Blue Sky Days, which John mentioned. It's a drone's eye view of America. And although it's rooted in journalistic principles, the project actually took my practice in a conceptual direction. Combining metaphor with documentary, the idea was to research the details of US drone strikes abroad, and then photograph similar situations with my camera attached to a drone in the United States. Situations like weddings, funerals, or people praying or exercising. And these images have had equal success finding homes online, in magazines, and as well in museums and galleries. If any of you are in New York next Thursday, please join me for an opening at the Anastasia Photo Gallery of this work. So perhaps it won't come as a surprise that my current project in partnership with the Pulitzer Center, which is an augmented reality-based investigation of how refugees portray themselves on social media, it was born out of a commission not initially from a magazine, but from a Center for Contemporary Arts. Now, the museum could offer me a modest artist fee, but they didn't have the budget to cover my travel costs along the refugee trail in Turkey, Greece, and France. Now, what was wonderful about this opportunity is that when I put the museum in touch with John and Natalie, they immediately grasped the wider potential. So in addition to supporting my reporting costs, the Pulitzer Center is launching News Arts, which is a robust program of talks and educational outreach, which does two things. It injects documentary values and current events into the arts, and at the same time, it nurtures original thinking and expansive creativity within journalism. After 16 years as a documentary photographer, it is refreshing to work with a team of people, including John, Natalie, Tom, Mark, Fareed, and previously Amanda, who understand the full potential of my medium. In short, these folks just get it. And in addition to the most direct benefit of my relationship with the Pulitzer Center, which, as you know, is money, there are indirect consequences that must be mentioned. We're all aware that the sustained financial stress within media companies means that the turnover rate amongst editors is uncomfortably high. Many of my favorite photo editors have been forced by market instability to jump from one job to another, like with the frequency of a cheap walkie-talkie. And this matters. When a freelance photographer proposes a daring story idea, something that entails risk and uncertainty, it really helps to have a multi-year relationship with an editor, built on trust and a consistent track record of past stories that hit the mark. And during my career, there have been many times that I've invested several years in establishing trust with an editor, only to have my interlocutor be transferred, laid off, or with a gutted budget. So in contrast, for the past 10 years, the Pulitzer Center has been refreshingly stable, allowing the time for a mutual bond of respect to develop. So like many of the other freelancers here tonight, I initially came knocking on the door of the Pulitzer Center for money, but ultimately, I'm proud to say, what keeps me coming back is trust, admiration, and friendship. Thank you.